I'm going to give you the exact steps that financial planners use to estimate retirement plan income. What is this video going to tell you? I'm going to give you exactly how much you need to have in your portfolio when you get to retirement and how to know that you're on track to end up with that amount so you can create the retirement that you want to have. Then I'm going to show you why it's only the first step, and I'll lead you to what that next step is after you know what that number needs to be. As we get started, I'm Nick Davis, founder of Brindle and Bay Wealth Management. We are a retirement planning firm, and we're here to show you how to retire with calmness and clarity. So why do we estimate how much money we need to have in our portfolio at the point of retirement? That's because we don't want to get there and have an unpleasant surprise. We also don't want to get there and realize that we've oversaved. We could have retired earlier, or we've undersaved and we're not going to be able to spend what we want to be able to spend. So it's very important to understand if you're on track, and the earlier, the better. So I'm going to give you the exact steps that financial planners can use to figure that number out. You can follow along and you can determine those numbers for yourself as well. So the first step is to determine how much you're going to spend in retirement. Some people already know what that number looks like. They have an idea in their head. Most people have to do a little bit of figuring that out. And I'll give you a very simple way to do that. Simply take your combined salary with your spouse, back out anything you're saving, like 401k and any extra saving that you're doing, and also back out any debts that will be paid off at the point of retirement. And what does that number look like? So let's pretend that number looks like $120,000 for you. Now, so let's not get hung up on the numbers. For some people, it's going to be too much, and for other people, it's going to be too little, but the process works the same for everybody. So if you were to replace $120,000 after tax, then you'd be replacing 100% of your lifestyle when you stop working. Now, if you don't like the numbers in terms of how much you need to have, you can always decide to just replace 80% or 90% or just a lesser percentage of your lifestyle and make it all fit, or you can decide to work a year longer, et cetera, et cetera. But let's go with $120,000 for this example. Now we're going to want to gross that up for taxes. So because we want to have this number after tax. So a very simple way to do that is we can say, well, an effective tax rate at this level may be 15%, right? So it doesn't mean that that's not your named or nominal tax rate, because it could be higher than that, but let's just say the blend is 15%. So we would then take that $120,000 and we would divide it into 0.85, and we would get about right around $141,000. So let's just say $140,000 is the number that we're shooting for, so that we can potentially have that after-tax amount of $120,000, about $10,000 per month. So step 2 would be to back out your Social Security amount. Let's just assume that you and your spouse will have an estimated Social Security amount of $70,000 for easy math. I know that seems high for some people, and it seems kind of high, but if you're both well paid, $70,000 between two spouses happens all the time. And so we'll take $70,000 and we will go ahead and just take that off of the 140. And that tells us that we're actually needing to solve for about $70,000 a year coming out of our portfolio. But that's not the entire story, because if you're going to retire in, say, 7 to 10 years, $70,000 is going to need to be higher because of inflation. So that leads us to the next step, which is add in inflation. Now, keeping it simple, let's just say that 3% inflation is what we're going to add each year from now until the point that we retire. If you don't like 3%, hang out to the end of this video, and I'm going to show you that that's not the end of the story, right? It needs to be a little bit more detailed than that, but we're just using it for some rough information. Now, I use this HP calculator to figure out what that future number looks like. So if I put $70,000 in here, say we're going to retire in 7 years, and 3% inflation, that $70,000 surprisingly actually needs to be $86,000 rounded off. So in order to spend about $70,000 for my portfolio, I'm really going to need to pull about $86,000 every single year from my portfolio. Now, step 4 is to pick a distribution rate. That means how much money am I going to be pulling out of my portfolio every single year as a rule, so that I don't run out of money. Now, there was a study done years ago called the Trinity study, and they try to determine what that safe withdrawal number is. So this is often called the 4% rule or a safe withdrawal percentage. But the point is what is the lowest percentage or the highest percentage that I could possibly pull out and not have the fear of running out of money during my retirement. Many of you are familiar with this study. And so you could pick a distribution number from anywhere from 2.5% to 5.5% to 6%. We're going to go with 4.5% for this example. And what that essentially means is that if you have $1 million in an investment portfolio, that first year you would actually be pulling about $45,000 out from the portfolio. From there, we're going to go to step 5, which is to determine the portfolio size. Meaning, if I'm going to limit myself to 4.5% beginning withdrawal, and I need to pull $86,000 out a year, how big does my portfolio need to be when I retire so that I can do that? So in this example, we would take $86,000, we would divide it by 4.5%, and we would get the alarming $1.9 million rounded. And so that means that when we stop working in 7 years, our portfolio needs to be about $1.9 million. If it was less than that, that means we'd be having to pull a larger percentage out, which would be putting us at greater risk. If it's way more than that, well, then we're putting ourselves at less risk. So we have to determine how are we going to make sure we get to that $1.9 million, which takes us to our next step, which would be to determine how much are we saving each year, and are we on track to be able to reach that number? So of course, if you don't like that $1.9 million answer, you can always go back to the drawing board or look for non-investment ways to help out as well, like phasing your retirement, working an extra year, a part-time job during retirement. There are different ways to solve. They're not just strictly from your investment portfolio, but in this example, we're just talking strictly about traditional retirement and pulling that money out and no longer working. All right, so number 6, we're going to solve for payment. So we know we need $1.9 million. We have 7 years to get there. How much do we need to be saving to make sure that we're going to be there? Maybe we're already there and we could retire now, and retirement, work is optional. But we need to solve to figure out to make sure that we are saving the right amount every year. So again, using my HP calculator, we're going to take our total amount of savings. So let's just pretend that you add up your 401k and all of your retirement savings that are dedicated to your income. Let's say that number is $1.2 million. We know we have 7 years before we stop working. So we're going to say we've got this much time for it to grow. And then I'm going to estimate just a 5% return annually. The reason I'm going to do that is because it's not a 10 or 15 year window. So I'm not going to go with the average expected return. I'm going to go with something a little bit less than that, because we can't trust an investment portfolio in a short window. So let's just say 5%. So then we're going to solve for payment. So what is that payment, that savings I need to be making to myself in total to equal that 1.9 million from 1.2 at 5%? And the number comes out right below $26,000 a year. So that $26,000 is the amount of money we need to be saving every year for the next 7 years to make sure that we have what we want. So in summary, what we've done so far is we've figured out how much we want to be spending. We've backed out Social Security. We've added inflation. We've picked a distribution rate. We've figured out how much we need to have in our portfolio and how much we need to be saving each year. So the only thing that we need now is to make sure that those savings are happening. So that next step would be to just adjust your savings to make sure that it's on track for what it is that you're going after. Now, that savings could be coming from your employer match. It could be coming from what you're saving combined. It could mean that you need to increase how much you're saving or even decrease how much you're saving, or you might be able to retire earlier. But this is the general way of doing this. Now, I will say that you have to be warned is that what got you to the point of retirement is not what's going to get you through retirement, because this is how to estimate how much retirement income to have the amount that you want to have in a conservative way. But I believe that there are some drawbacks to this, meaning if you only take 4.5% and follow that percentage rule, that safe withdrawal percentage rule, there's some practical drawbacks that aren't super convenient. And I think that people should choose to actually have a retirement spending strategy at the point of retirement. So 2 key things that kind of stand out to me that you should be aware of is, number 1, the way we spend money doesn't match that glide path of 4.5% with inflation every year, or 4%, or whatever number it is, right? We actually spend money in more of a hatchet shape with a smile. So the image that you're seeing here is kind of a projected plan for somebody, and that dark blue is the amount of money coming out of the portfolio. So there may be 4 or 5 years of an 8 or 9% withdrawal per year. And then you can see that light blue, that dark blue goes down to a much smaller number later on. Those other colors represent Social Security and pension and other incomes turning on. So it doesn't really match the way that people spend in retirement. So you should probably have a strategy that allows for you to be able to have that natural spending pattern. The other issue with only using this method to retire is that there's an imprecision in the way that traditional financial planning works, often called Monte Carlo. So the image that you're seeing there shows that the ending value for this family can either be $0 or a lot of money. It pushes all of that wealth towards the end of life. And it would be nice to know, first of all, we don't want to run out of money, but if we're one of those people that are doing better and we're not going to run out of money, we'd like to be told that we're able to spend more money. And it's very hard to do that, practically speaking, when we're following the strict rigidness of a 4 or 5% rule, because there's not really a logistical way to easily say it's okay for you to spend more money now. It's more off the cuff. And so to me, those are some challenges that it would be nice to know when I'm younger, that I could spend more, because I would get a lot more use of my money that I've worked so hard to save for. So I don't believe that the 4 or 5% rule is the best choice or a great choice. At Brindle and Bay, we refer to it as money master guardrails. And I'm not going to go into it in this video, but I did write a white paper all about it and how it works. So if you want to download that, you can look in the video description and you can grab a copy and you can see how that works. So that's it. The first stage of your understanding how to estimate your retirement income is here in these steps. And then that second stage would be to choose a strategy. If you want to see another video about how retirement income strategies work, I made a video and you can see it right here. Hey there, it's Nick again. I wrote something that you might be interested in. If you want to know what my favorite retirement income strategy is for most people or many people, we refer to it as the Money Master Guardrails. If you're contemplating what your income strategy for retirement may look like, I invite you to download a copy of my white paper. Get the insights you need, download a copy today. The link is in the video description.